They thought humanity was fragile, too weak to survive in their unforgiving world. So, when they invited a lone human to hunt the deadliest beast alive, it wasn't meant as an honor. It was a death sentence. The alien crowd expected fear, panic, and failure. But what unfolded in that dark wilderness defied every law of survival they believed in. Instead of running, the human did something no one creature or alien could have imagined. And in that moment, the fate of two worlds shifted forever. What happens when the weakest species shows the strongest heart? Before the trial that would change everything, Daniel was just another human drifting among the stars. He had no special rank, no celebrated victories, no reputation that carried weight beyond his own small world. What he did have was a stubborn curiosity, the kind that made him step into places others feared, and a heart that refused to bow even when logic demanded it. Among the alien races, he was seen as little more than a fragile outsider, tolerated at best, pitied at worst. They marveled at his endurance in hostile environments, yet whispered that his kind did not belong in the arenas of true survival. Life for Daniel aboard the interspecies colony ship was predictable, almost routine. He worked, observed, and listened more than he spoke. He learned their customs, smiled at their contempt, and stored away every lesson. But beneath that quiet exterior was a tension. No one else noticed the unshakable sense that their eyes lingered on him, not with respect, but with calculation. Whispers of a coming challenge stirred through the corridors, growing sharper every day. When the invitation finally arrived, it wasn't wrapped in ceremony or honor. It came like a sentence already decided. They wanted a human to face what none of them dared. And Daniel realized the life he had known was about to shatter forever. The announcement spread quickly, rippling through the alien ranks like wildfire. A human of all creatures was chosen to face the trial of the beast. Many laughed openly, their voices dripping with cruel amusement. To them, Daniel wasn't a warrior, but a spectacle of fragile body, sent to entertain. By failing in the most spectacular way possible, they spoke as if he couldn't hear, their words cutting deeper than any blade. "It will be over in minutes," one alien sneered. "Perhaps seconds. He won't even touch it before he breaks." Daniel walked through the preparation halls in silence, but every step echoed with the weight of their scorn. His weapons were meager compared to the alien arsenal. No advanced shields, no genetic enhancements, only a crude blade and his own resolve. He noticed the looks from the handlers, pity in some eyes, delight in others. They weren't preparing him for survival. They were sending him to die. The arena loomed, carved into stone older than their recorded history. Massive gates creaked open, revealing a shadow that seemed to breathe with menace. The crowd roared, their cheers masking the undercurrent of expectation. Blood, fear, and failure. The beast's growl thundered across the grounds, a sound that silenced even the boldest. Daniel tightened his grip, every instinct screaming at him to run. But he stood his ground. The first clash came like a storm. The beast's strike tore the earth, forcing Daniel to leap aside with only inches to spare. Dust filled his lungs. Claws raked the air where his chest had been. Laughter erupted from the stands. They expected fear, collapse, surrender. Instead, Daniel rose, eyes locked not on the beast's fangs, but on its eyes. For a heartbeat, the creature hesitated, almost as if puzzled by the lack of terror. And in that hesitation, Daniel saw something the others refused to believe. Not just a monster, but a mind. Still, the attacks grew more vicious. Each blow shook the ground. Each roar pressed harder against his resolve. Sweat stung his eyes, muscles screamed with exhaustion. But he refused to give them the show they wanted. With every dodge, every narrow escape, the crowd's laughter grew uneasy. Whispers replaced cheers. Why hadn't he fallen? Why did the beast falter each time their gazes met? The battle was far from over. The creature circled, Daniel circling back, two beings measuring one another in silence. Around them, the aliens leaned forward, sensing something they could not name. Daniel's breath came ragged, but his eyes never wavered. He was no longer fighting for survival alone. He was fighting to prove a truth none of them were ready to accept. And as the beast lowered its massive head with a low rumble that wasn't anger, but recognition, the entire arena held its breath, waiting for what would come next. The arena shook with fury as the beast lunged one final time, its massive body crashing down with the force of a collapsing mountain. Daniel hit the ground hard, the crude blade flying from his hand. Pain ripped through his chest as claws pinned him to the earth, the creature's hot breath washing over his face. The crowd roared, certain the end had come. They wanted to see the fragile human broken, crushed into dust beneath the monster's weight. For a heartbeat, Daniel's vision blurred, his strength nearly gone. Every voice in the stands demanded surrender, every expectation pressed him into the role of victim. But even on the edge of defeat, something inside him refused to yield. With trembling hands, he met the beast's gaze, not with fear, but with defiance. What he saw in its eyes stunned him. Behind the rage burned not hatred, but pain and anguish that mirrored his own. Instead of struggling, Daniel stilled. His breath slowed. His hand, shaking yet steady, reached toward the beast's scarred hide. Gasps rippled through the crowd as claws that could have ended. His life in an instant hesitated, then withdrew. The monster's growl turned into a low, mournful sound that silenced the entire arena. What they had sent as execution had transformed into something they couldn't comprehend. Daniel rose to his knees, battered and bloodied, yet unbroken. The creature, once their weapon of fear, bowed its massive head beside him, not as a predator to prey, but as an equal to an equal. The silence was deafening. Thousands of eyes, once filled with contempt, now stared in disbelief. For the first time in their history, the deadliest beast had chosen not violence, but trust, and with that choice, the story of humanity changed forever. The question lingered in every stunned heart. If the weakest among them could tame what they feared most, what else might humanity conquer? When Daniel finally stepped out of the arena, he was no longer the outsider they mocked. The same voices that had laughed now fell into silence, forced to confront a truth they had never considered, that strength is not always measured by claws, armor, or power, but by compassion and the courage to stand unbroken when all expect you to fall. The beast had bowed to a human, and with it, centuries of arrogance crumbled in an instant. Yet Daniel knew the battle was never truly against the creature. It was against prejudice itself, the walls built by fear, the lies whispered about weakness, the injustice of being judged unworthy simply for being different. He had faced the same disdain so many before him had endured, whether on distant worlds or here on Earth. Racism, discrimination, the quiet cruelty of assumptions, these were the true enemies, far more dangerous than any beast could ever be. The lesson was not just for them, but for us. Humanity's greatest victories are not won through domination, but through understanding, through seeing the soul behind the scars, the person behind the label. Daniel's defiance was not simply survival, it was a reminder that the heart, when unshaken by hatred, is the most powerful weapon of all. So the question remains, if one man's compassion could silence a stadium of doubters and tame a monster bred for fear, what might we achieve if we chose to see each other not as threats, but as equals? That answer is ours to write, and perhaps, like Daniel, our legacy will not be built on what we destroy, but on what we dare to heal.